Welcome back to Missing. I am Tim, here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm a little frazzled today, Tim, because the Bluetooth stopped working on my computer, the internet went down, my computer froze, so I'm just trying to get myself back on the old saddle and ride that horse again. That's me being perfectly transparent. How are you, though? I hope my frazzledness isn't bringing you down.
No, I'm doing great. I'm excited about this episode. This case is a recent case. It is unresolved. It is about the mysterious death of a man named Val D'Auvray. In this episode, we speak with investigative reporter from WECT in Wilmington, North Carolina. His name is Michael Praats, and he's doing a great job uncovering facts, clues about Val's death, and it's a complicated case, Lance. So Val was originally reported missing by his father on April 12th of 2022. The police spoke with him on April 17th, just about 5 days later. They spoke with him about a call, and there's some body cam footage. We'll play some of it, and Michael describes this incident in the interview. But Val was unfortunately found dead the very next day. I'm just shocked and confused why it didn't show up to those police officers that Val had been reported missing.
Right, because the police officers arrived at what was allegedly the attempted break-in of a nursing home where Val and apparently another person had been called in as potential trespassers. So the police showed up. There's body camera footage that's been released. Michael Praats has obtained that. They've released it on WECT.com, so you can find that. And when Val's name was run, your issue is, why didn't that come up as someone who has been registered as a missing person and subsequently taken into custody, taken to family? Something should have happened there. Val claimed that he was being chased, which is why he was at the nursing home trying to get into a lit area or trying to get to a place that was safe, because he was being chased by people that he didn't know. And when you look at the video, you see that he's out of breath. You see that there's an issue going on, but he's not acting like somebody who is under the influence of any sort of drugs or alcohol. He just seems like he's nervous, out of breath, and trying to do the best to explain to the police officers why he's there. And if his name had been in some system after the missing person report had been filed, this incident definitely would have been resolved right then. So that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. If they ran his name, saw that he was a missing person, something would have happened aside from him receiving, it seems like, just a verbal citation for trespassing. And then he even comments, maybe I'll go over to that gas station just so I can stay in the light. And you said the next day his body's found with head trauma, like from a fall, or we hear in the interview, it could have been a baseball bat, or it could have been that he fell and hit his head.
Tragic loss of Val D'Auvray, regardless of sort of the bureaucratic issue. And there are questions on how he died. And we get into that with investigative reporter Michael Praats. So this is really a mystery that has multi-prongs to it. Even if Val died accidentally, there's still an issue here. And I think I get a little emotional in the interview. I get a little frustrated. My hidden opinions, Tim, comes out a little bit here. So I don't want to be too hard on the police in regards to this, because watching the body cam video, it seems they did a pretty good job, I think. I'm a little confused again why he didn't come up missing, or maybe they should have put him in protective custody, but that's a little Monday morning quarterbacking over here anyway. So it seemed like a tough position. They didn't know whether he was telling them the truth or not, and yeah, like you said, they let him off with a warning. And Val even says himself that he may have to go to the drastic measure of getting arrested just to avoid getting caught by these folks who Val claimed were chasing him. And he does mention one person he thought had a bat.
And you mentioned that you had a couple of frustrated moments during this interview, and it is when you hear Michael Praats talk about everything that went down in the details and all of those, like, what ifs. What if his name came up, because it's such a tragic loss of life. And with that being said, we are not saying that we think that the police are trying to cover something up. When you watch the body cam footage, it's pretty clear that they're doing the best that they can. They're taking it for what it is, and they're listening to Val. They're taking all of his information down. They're taking notes. They bring in other people. They're trying to figure out what happened, and they're not giving him a hard time. They're not pushing him around. They're not doing anything other than police work. It was just that thing right before. He's been filed as a missing person. Where was the drop-off? That's where a lot of the frustration comes from, not so much the police at that time. So yeah, check out that body cam footage. Again, police seem to be doing their job. Also, Val's brother Zan, that's Xan, he's doing a great job on TikTok, and you can follow him on TikTok at Zan Callahan, Callihan. And also Val's father, also named Val, is doing a great job trying to get answers. So these aren't individuals who are recklessly pursuing the police, saying that there's conspiracy. They just want to know why things happened the way they happened, and they want answers for why Val is no longer alive.
Okay, so I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I think you'll probably be as frustrated as we are. Feel free to comment about this, about the body cam video. Let us know what you think on social media. And you can follow Michael Praats on Twitter at Michael_Praats, and that's Praats. And also, all of his work is on the WECT website at WECT.com, and you'll find a link in the show notes for that. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. We are being joined now by investigative reporter Michael Praats. Michael, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys having me on here.
Absolutely. You were the first person that we reached out to with the coverage of this particular injustice that has happened, and you've done a great job. Before we get into that, can you introduce yourself to the listeners, a little bit about your background and what you're currently doing as far as your occupation, your journalism and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Michael Praats. I am investigative journalist here in Wilmington, North Carolina for WECT. We're an NBC affiliate station here on the coast. Pretty small town that is rapidly growing here. So I've been working in journalism since 2015, late 2015. Went to school, actually never desired to be a journalist, went to school for political science and international relations, and fell into journalism my senior year of college, and haven't stopped since. Because of my non-traditional education in journalism, my stories tended to lend themselves to more long-form reporting, and really just got moved into the investigative role due to the substance of my stories and my desire to kind of go past the typical headlines of things.
Interesting. I know a couple of people who went to school for poli-sci as well and came out as a journalist, came out on some level of journalism.
Yeah, it's certainly not the path. I besides my wife, I don't know many other people that took that route, but to be fair, she did. She always wanted to be a journalist. She's the one that got me into it. She was working at a paper, and I needed beer money, and they were offering part-time work, so I took it.
Very good. And do you think that your education in that particular category helps to bring that substance that you spoke about, the substance to the stories that you cover?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's government malfeasance, corruption. I studied constitutional law for 3 years in college. The plan was to go to law school. That didn't happen. So I definitely think, especially when it comes to processes in government, it absolutely helps me really advance past the typical skin deep stories here.
Yet you've dug real deep into the case of Val D'Auvray. This is a very frustrating case. Can you tell us a little bit about the case? I would love to establish a timeline for our audience, because I know it's kind of a confusing one.
Yeah, it really is. Frustrating is a great word for this. That's something his family and I have said over and over again. So Val D'Auvray was a man here in Wilmington. He was found dead on the property of a brewery here in Wilmington on April the 18th of 2022. His father had reached out to WECT, to our investigative team, myself and one other reporter, and I started looking into this after he said, there were suspicious things happening here. Reached out with them, ended up collaborating with counterpart over at Port City Daily, which is another news outlet here in Wilmington, Alex Sand. She's actually moved on from Port City Daily, which is why I'm kind of handling this now solo. We started looking into this. His father reached out in probably early May. We started doing some work on that. The very first story was essentially the family wants answers. They really didn't have a whole lot of information at that time. They knew that he was found dead. They had gone to the property where he was found dead, which again is a beautiful new brewery here in Wilmington. It's a little bit of an interesting method that they have here. It's called True Colors, and it is run in large part by active gang members. Their whole reason for being, the founder of it wanted to do something to address gang violence in the area. So he put this together as a way to bring rival gang members together to work and kind of hash things out. They do have civilians employed there that are not active gang members, but a large portion of the employees are gang members. And the reasoning behind that, the founder of it says that it is to, bring these people together, commit to reducing gun violence basically in the streets of Wilmington, because it has been a growing problem. As a city grows, you do have those sorts of issues cropping up. And this was how he felt he could best help the situation. So the family had some concerns with that, because when they reached out to the brewery, they were told that the video cameras were down. Now, this is a brand new brewery. They do have some suspicions with that, but the founder, the owner of the brewery said, our systems were undergoing maintenance. They weren't back online until the following day. So they were down from about Thursday until Tuesday. So over that weekend, he says. So that, of course, raised some questions.
Yeah, for sure. And this brewery kind of has a little bit of a weird past as well.
There have been multiple shootings involving members and possibly employees of this. Probably one of the biggest ones was the founder's son, who also works for True Colors. There was a home invasion, and I believe it was a double homicide in his home, which is not near the brewery. It's a nice part of town here. Multiple people ended up shot and killed. Yeah, so that was one of the biggest things that has had some concerns with this with the brewery, and whether or not it's working, because it's kind of hard to prove a negative. We're reducing gun violence, but how do you prove something that's not happening?
Yeah, that's a great point. And how do you prove that, shootings wouldn't have happened if they didn't have that employment? So, yeah, like you said, proving that negative is almost impossible. The owner, is he a former gang member at all?
He is not. He is a local Wilmington. Well, as far as I know, I don't believe he is. He is an entrepreneur here. He has several businesses, including, I'm not sure if he's still the owner, but he had a speed shop where they, modify cars. He's also, I believe, the founder of a brewing application that you can basically track what beers are on tap at your favorite breweries, because in Wilmington here we have like 17 or 18 craft breweries in a tiny little city. So that was one of the things he created. So really, I think he's more entrepreneurial as opposed to, had any specific skin in this game, so to speak.
How was Val's body found, and was there a determination made yet?
Sure. So the body was found, and I actually did finally get the 911 call. It was, from what it sounds like now, obviously, well, I don't know across the country, but here in North Carolina, they do edit some things out of 911 calls, like identifiers, phone numbers, that sort of thing. But the basic gist of the audio and the transcript that we did get, it was an employee of the brewery who found a man dead. He didn't know who he was. He said he had never seen him there before, and basically called police and said, they asked, is he breathing? He says, no, he's dead. And that was the extent of the call. Now, as far as the investigation goes and the police arriving on scene, we don't know what they did, what sort of investigation took place. We do know that it was ruled accidental. That is what his family has told us. The medical examiner has determined this was accidental. The family says they were told by police that this was accidental, but one of their biggest questions was, how can you say that? According to the family, there were multiple different stories that they were told by police, and that's one of their frustrations, is things don't really add up with what they were initially told. First, there was the idea that he possibly was climbing a fence, fell off of it, and hit his head. The other more recent theory that I heard when I was actually in court regarding this case was that he, fell off of a building at the roof level and hit his head that way. So it's not exactly clear, and because it is private property and they do have a big privacy fence, it's really difficult for us to actually gain any access to that property and see. And without knowing where the body was and how it was, discovered, we just don't know what efforts the police took to investigate this.
And in your experience as a journalist, is that something that you've encountered before, where the family member has told you, we think it happened like this, and the police have reported to you that it was something maybe completely different or slightly different?
I wouldn't say it's usual. Honestly, I have heard it here and there, and obviously for family members, losing a loved one is the worst thing that can happen, and they are emotional, and they're obviously going to question things. I have had several people, since this story has come out, reach out on, drop Facebook comments, say, my family member too they said it was an accident. We don't believe it was. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of evidence in these cases, especially when they've gone, several, 5-10 years without that. It is something I am looking into. But right now, again, it's the family member's word against the police. And in North Carolina, police investigative records are notoriously difficult to get. Like I said, I had to go to court just to get body camera footage for this. So no, it's not usual in my experience, but it does happen. I have seen it more since this story came out.
And I take it there's been no release of body cam footage of police arriving on the scene at True Colors, huh?
That is correct. So in North Carolina, in order to, the state lawmakers have ruled that body camera footage is not a public record, despite taxpayers paying for it. They claim it's part of the investigation files. So that was a fairly recent, I think 2018, 2019 change to body camera laws that made it that you have to go to Superior Court to get a judge to release this footage. So I did that following our initial coverage of Val D'Auvray's situation. I petitioned on behalf of myself, pro se, got to go play lawyer for a day, went in there against the Wilmington Police Department's attorney, who was pretty accommodating actually about releasing the video from the 17th, which I do have. I got that the very next day. He fought me extremely hard on getting the footage from the 18th. His reasoning was you have to meet, I believe it's 9 points in North Carolina to have that released. His biggest issue was that he says there's no compelling public interest in releasing that video, and that's one of the things you do have to prove. Of course, his brother's TikTok, he's been sharing these videos that, the news stories, and he has gotten, I counted this morning, and it looks like in total, just his videos, not the ones that have been shared, have about 500,000 views. So it's clearly getting attention. We have had lots and lots of people here watching, reading, calling, and that was kind of my argument to the judge. But they still said no compelling public interest, and because it's contains sensitive information. So that's why they denied it. I still kind of want to appeal that.
Yeah, well, the public interest thing is bullcrap. As far as the investigative tool, I could see that being a point. But can Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened on the 17th?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an interesting case because Val's father, who's also named Val, I believe he might be the second, and the deceased Val is actually the third, I think. Val's father submitted a missing person report to the Wilmington Police Department. His son had issues with substance use. He was homeless by choice, is what his father called it. He had taken attempts to get off of drugs, to get clean. He had been, going to outpatient facilities here. And the night of the 17th, so this is where the story kind of gets convoluted between what police told his family and what actually happened. So the first time I met with his family, they told me that just hours before Val was found dead, police had an encounter with him. Well, it was a day before. It was 2:45 in the morning on the 17th, and he was found at 9 something in the morning the following day. So a good 26, 27 hours. What happened in that police body camera footage that we see? Val is the video starts, and there were already a couple people on scene when the body cameras start turning on. But it really was the police department's arrival at the location of I believe it was a senior assisted living facility, a nursing home of sorts. Val, a nurse and someone else is out there, and they had called police and said that Val was trying to break into the nursing home.
We're going to cut in with some body cam audio and video here. You can check out the video on YouTube. Obviously, the audio is going to be a little bit staticky. This version of the video is cut down to about 2 minutes. The full version that Michael Praats put on the WECT website is about 29 minutes, and it's 3 different angles from 3 different officers' body cam. So you want to check out that to get the full scope. This is a very cut down version of the full video. And you can tell there's some real confusion on the scene. The police don't know whether Val was trying to break in or whether his story about being chased is true. They listen to all sides. So credit to them for being open at least enough to listen to Val's account of being chased, even though there was no evidence that he was actually being chased. Okay, we're going to play it here.
What's going on here, man?
I don't know if it was like friends of mine or what, but they just showed up where I was staying at, and I caught the vibe that like something was up, so I just left. And then the one started tailing me, and then the other one came around in a car. Just now they're gonna think I snitched, and they're really gonna be after me, whoever they are.
Why would people be after you?
I don't know. I'm homeless right now. It's not necessarily the best crowd of people, if you know what I mean. I don't know. It was one guy, and he just like walked around the building. I'd never seen him before. He was real shady, didn't say hey or anything. He said something about, yeah, that's the guy I saw in front of Speedway or something. And I just got a weird feeling, so I walked off. And that's when he started following me and running across the road.
There was just one guy that was chasing you?
He was on the phone with the second one, and he's the one that pulled up in the car. I never heard the car, but he was like, they were going on both ends. Like one would be driving around and one would be on the tail end of me.
Did you see if they were armed at all?
Not necessarily, but I'm pretty sure one of them was carrying a bat or something. I saw a shadow or something. If I can just go to the gas station, just be somewhere where it's lit up. I'm sorry I came by here, but I was just hoping maybe I had a moment to where I could just get to somewhere lit up and say, sorry about all this.
No, you're all right. All right, so you're trespassing from here. Don't ever want to see you back out here. If you do, you're going to be arrested, okay?
I understand.
All right.
Honestly, I might have to do that if it comes down to it.
Well,
just so I can get away from it.
Listen, don't come out. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to, but they kept cutting me off.
You need to let people know that you need help, that you're being chased. You can't just try to get into a building, you know what I mean?
I wasn't even trying to get in. I was just trying to be in the light.
Val is very coherent in the video. He's not acting erratic or anything. He's clearly out of breath. And he says, I'm not trying to break in. I saw the lights. I came here for safety. So they start asking him, what are you talking about? And it turns out Val says he's being chased by 2 people. One was in a vehicle. One had gotten out of the vehicle. When police asked him if there was any sort of weapons involved, he said, I can't be Can't be certain, but I think one of them had a bat. He's clearly scared. You can see that video for yourself. He's frightened. He's worried about his safety. Police take his information. Actually, the whole encounter was very cordial, so to speak. There was no, obvious evidence of police behaving poorly in this situation. They took his information. They got his story. They didn't arrest him. They just simply trespassed him from the property. And the video basically ends after he tells the story. They say, okay, well, you're trespassed from here. You don't have any warrants. They ran his name. They say, you don't have any warrants. There's nothing on you. You're trespassed officially. If we catch you back here, you're going to be arrested. Val says, I understand that. And I think one of the most telling and kind of chilling parts of this is when the cop tells him he's going to be arrested if he's back, he said, well, I might have to do that if I'm scared, and, it might be the better option than being, caught by the people who he says chasing him. The officer says, look, we'll be around all night. You see how many officers are here. If you need help, start calling for help, flag one of us down, we'll be there. So that's kind of how this encounter ends. We don't see Val walking away or where he goes. He says he's running up to a gas station in the video. He says that, okay, well, I'm going up there to stay in the lights and stay safe. That was the last video footage I have seen of Val alive.
I don't want to criticize the police department there, but wasn't the act of him trying to get into and trespass on a property sort of a metaphorical or another form of him waving for help? And then when the police show up, he's saying, I'm being chased. Why are they giving it another... Why are they putting space between that and then saying, well, if you do need help, just flag us down? Like, well, what is he doing right there?
Well, I will say, and I just want to put a caveat in here. I've actually been working on it today. I'm cutting all of the body camera footage. I'm editing out some of the arrival. There's no audio, or some of the officers are walking around the buildings, because it's 4 videos that are just way too long to really watch in its entirety for any purpose. So all of the parts where they're actually talking, I am going to be uploading that. You can tell that at least one of the police officers, is talking with another officer, he says he's being chased. I don't know. He looks really sweaty. He's been running. So it sounds like he's giving him a little bit of belief here. The other officer says, well, that's just weird. Why wouldn't he be calling for help? It sounds like there's a little bit of doubt, and they suspect that he was actually trying to break in. What's going through officers' minds at that point, I can't say, but it did sound like there was a little bit of doubt to Val's story as to whether or not he was being chased, or whether or not that was an excuse to try and break in. We just don't know what was going through the police officer's mind when they encountered this. They didn't show any indication of knowing who he was. As his family said, he was homeless by choice. He did look like he might have been someone without a home. And he says, I've been sleeping in the woods over here. So I can only speculate as to what was going through officers' minds, whether or not they think he was breaking into a nursing home, for what reason. They don't say. There was, like I said, that one officer who kind of gave him that benefit and said, I don't know, he's sweating pretty bad. It does seem like if you have someone, and this is a point his family made, if you have someone that you think is breaking into a building or being chased, and his brother pointed this out, he said, why didn't you ask him if you can drive him somewhere for help? Why didn't you ask if he has family he can call? Anything like that. They basically just said, get lost.
Right. And on the flip side, did they actually frisk him? Did they search him for weapons or any sign that he was actually breaking in?
So I don't see any evidence that happened. There might have been an officer on scene before the body camera footage starts rolling, but I don't believe so. You see him walking around. He sits down. They tell him to sit down because he's pacing. He looks nervous. He has a backpack on, but it didn't appear that he had been any sort of threat. And I don't see them search his bag whatsoever. Whether or not they did that off camera, I really can't say, but it doesn't appear to me that there was any sort of frisking or pat down or searching of a bag. No.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. And then please tell us about how his father had reported him missing previous to this moment?
Sure. So his father filed that missing persons report with the police department, and I actually have I have screenshots and emails that he has forwarded to me. It was sent about a week, 6 days before his death, so 5 days prior to the run-in with Val at that nursing facility when he was alive. And that is one of the biggest questions we have here is, how did the police, they ran his name. I watched them in the body camera footage, run his name through a computer terminal in the police cruiser. They look, they see, DUI, things like this. And they don't find any active warrants or anything, but nothing pops that says, oh, missing person report filed, let's call his family at a bare minimum. If you're an adult and you go missing, it's allowed. But you still should ask if you have permission to let your family know that's been searching for you, that we have made contact and you're okay. It doesn't seem like they even knew he was a missing person.
Do you know why that is?
That is something his family and I are desperately trying to find out what happened. I will say my relationship with the Wilmington Police Department could absolutely be better. I don't get a whole lot of information out of them. So when there's investigations or ongoing internal affairs things, in general, though, the public's not typically made aware of any IA investigations. But his father has said he's spoken with IA multiple times. He told us they were conducting and I believe he says it has been concluded now, an internal affairs investigation into the missing persons report situation, we'll call it, whether or not the desk officer who he called it into, and he also sent these emails, whether or not that officer put it into the system and put it out to all the police in the city, or whether or not, it could have been in there. I don't have access to NCIC, which is that national database. We don't know if the responding officer just didn't, it doesn't appear that he ran anything through NCIC. He ran it through what he calls NCJD, which is a smaller database that has criminal history and stuff like that in North Carolina. Again, I don't have access to that, but from what I have read about it, it doesn't list missing persons, and it's less comprehensive than the system run by the Department of Justice. So we're not sure where the intercept was here that basically failed him.
At the time of his death, do you know if Val had any drugs or alcohol in his system? And was the cause of death like blunt force trauma to the head?
So yes, the cause of death, again, from what his family has told us, we still have not gotten a coroner's report, which can take about 90 days in North Carolina. We've requested it here at WECT, and his family is waiting on it as well. The cause of death was ruled, I don't know the legal term, but yes, blunt force trauma to the back of the head. Basically, they're saying he fell, cracked his head, and that's how he died. An interesting caveat to this is when his family, his brother Zan was talking with the medical examiner, or one of the people at the office that examines these bodies. He asked, could this have been caused with the weapon? And the person he was talking to said, anything could be possible. It could have been caused by a bat. He said, to kind of justify that, though, he said, but also not trying to be funny, a cow could have stepped on his head or a spaceship fell on it. So, but he did say the words, it could have been a bat. So that kind of gave them pause.
Did he just pull that I guess weapon out of the air, or did he know that Val had claimed to have been chased by someone with a bat, or probably not, huh?
I don't believe he knew that that he had said he was being chased by anybody with the bat. I do believe he pulled that out, and benefit of the doubt here, though, a bat is a very common weapon we see with a head wound like that, or a blunt force of any sort. So I don't know if there's anything more worth reading into as far as his report goes. But again, until we actually get that copy, there's just no way of us knowing what they actually found or what they saw.
And regarding the alcohol or drugs in the system, were there anything that you know of?
I do not know of anything. When looking at the body camera footage and seeing Val, he seems cognizant. He seems coherent. he does not seem to be, delusional, high out of his mind. Now, I'm not a police officer. I can't smell if there's alcohol in his breath from a video. I can't smell if he smells like marijuana, if his pupils are dilated, anything like that. But just from appearances, he doesn't appear to be impaired. But right now, until we get that autopsy report, we don't know if there was anything found in his system. My guess is he was prescribed medication for his substance use. So my guess is he at least had something to that degree in his system. So whether or not it contributes to the cause of death, we don't know.
Well, I suppose if he was impaired at that time when police were speaking with him, when he had that encounter, and they noticed it, if they noticed anything on his breath, they probably would have given him some sort of sobriety test or something, considering the fact that they arrived at the scene thinking it was somebody breaking in. So I'm just maybe tossing out an observation there.
That is a great point. You would here in North Carolina, marijuana is illegal. You can't be drunk in public, although, people do. But, had they suspected anything like that, or even, if there were more, illicit narcotics involved, that's illegal as well. You can arrest someone for that. Those are, if you get caught with cocaine or heroin, those can end up being felony serious charges. So the fact they didn't search him or find anything like that leads me to believe there wasn't necessarily a suspicion of that.
Right. And Val had been getting sober, right, at a facility?
He had, yeah. So he actually went through a long process. His family was really worried about him. Again, on his brother's TikTok, he went viral saying, "We cannot afford to send him to treatment. We really want to get him help." That got viral. He ended up getting an offer from a detox facility in Tennessee after seeing that video. He detoxed there. Then he went to a longer term rehab treatment center in Ohio. Then he moved back, and apparently he had relapsed since then. Mm-hmm. But he was on the way. He was an outpatient at this Coastal Horizons facility here, which is a methadone clinic and provides other services for drugs and alcohol treatment. He was not living there, though. He was in a transition phase. His family says he was a couple weeks away from moving into a new, a sober living facility of sorts. But obviously he didn't make it.
The area where they found his body, was there any evidence that he had fallen and cracked his head on like a curb or something like that? Again,
we're just going based off what the ME has told him and what the police have told, his father and brothers, what the police and medical examiner have said. I don't know because, again, I can't see those reports, but I would assume they're saying he just fell on concrete because that is a concrete area there. But we don't have what evidence they're pointing to that leads them to believe, oh, he just slipped and fell, or his family floated the idea that they were told he could have possibly been delusional and jumped off of it. There was all sorts of theories in the beginning here. But like I said, the body camera footage shows something very different than what his family initially told us when I first met with them.
And who was it that told them? Was it police that told them that he might have been delusional and jumped off of a building?
So yes, that is. So actually, in the courtroom, the attorney for the police department did make a reference to that, saying, this was clearly accidental. The man fell off of a roof. But police also say that, or the family also says that a detective with the Wilmington Police Department gave him bad information, at least initially, said that he was reportedly seen at 2:30 a.m. at the wrong location. It was 2:30 a.m. a block away and at a different facility. They said he was half clothed, that he wasn't wearing shoes or a shirt, which is how he was found. His body was found. But when police interacted with him, he was fully clothed, wearing shoes. So there were a lot of inconsistencies there. But his father specifically is just really pushing for, if it's an accident, they'll be okay with that, but prove it to us. Tell us that this was an accident. And so far, we just haven't been presented with any evidence, even in the courtroom. I did ask, one of the questions they said is, oh, you just want to put a dead body on TV. I said, absolutely not. I wouldn't do that anyways. I even asked for them to redact all the video and just provide me the audio. They wouldn't do that. So there's no real way of knowing how much time they spent on this investigation the day of the 18th when they did find him, whether or not they just looked at him and said, and this is something, again, his family has said, had this been in an upscale neighborhood and it was a socialite in town here, would the investigation have been different as opposed to a homeless man who was just found on the property there? So there's definitely a lot of questions as to what investigation went into determining his cause of death.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the possibility of him falling off of a building or a fence over there. I imagine this building and this fence, they must be to the sky.
So I think that I'm not an engineer here. I haven't taken a tape measure either. Probably about 25 feet from the building to the ground. And the fence, though, is probably, I think his family said about 8 feet, and they just really were not buying that because one thing they did note is Val had like 4-inch thick dreadlocks. So a blow to the back of the head, especially after falling off an 8-foot fence, is it possible? Sure. You can drown in a puddle, but yes. They didn't really buy the whole idea that it was just, that he fell off an 8-foot fence and that's what killed him.
It should be more clear which it was, though, the fence or the building. And if they thought it was the
right.
fence, they should be wondering why or how someone like Val, how they died after falling from an 8-foot fence.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, again, this frustration comes in because the police are not providing any of that evidence to the family. They're certainly not providing it to me. And we've been saying, just tell us how you determine this cause of death. Why was the family told, oh, it was a fence? Oh, it was this. Why did the story about cameras on the building? It actually did change a couple times from the owner of the brewery. Although I do believe a little bit of this is semantics, said they were down versus they were getting updated. If they're being updated and they are down, it's kind of one and the same, but the family is looking into everything here. And again, the biggest frustration on my end as an investigator and as their family who just wants to know what happened is why nobody is talking, why nobody will provide them any clarity as to what they believe happened.
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear what you were saying earlier about if this was some socialite from a better part of town, this would be a full-blown investigation. They thought that they just had a random homeless man who encountered his death, and they didn't anticipate that they had a random homeless man whose family doesn't accept that, and that's where they're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that that it certainly was not expected that his family would be pushing back so hard and not accept what they're telling them. As to their investigative methods, I was not there, so I really can't cast judgment in the sake of staying neutral here and being open to whatever possibility it might be. I have to, take them for their word until I can prove otherwise. But that is definitely a question and a statement that his family has made, is that if he had been someone else, this would not be ruled an accident so quickly, and no evidence provided to the family, anything like that. So they do believe, and I have a soundbite where he says, if he had been a different socioeconomic class, this would have been handled very differently. So,
and we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't mean to make it sound like you said that. It was the family telling you that, and you're
Sure.
delivering that statement from the family. Speaking of the family, you've been working really closely with them. Obviously, they're frustrated, and they're mourning and grieving, and they're probably, super pissed about everything that's gone down. Are they okay? Have you found that they're doing well or as well as possible?
I think they're hanging in there. It's definitely taken a physical and mental toll on them. I actually spoke with Val, the senior, today, just running down some some of his ideas and questions that he still has related to some of this investigation and the lack thereof of information. Val's brothers, Keith and Zan, they're hanging in there. They're obviously very distraught. They are, it seems to be that they're propping each other up right now, but doing as well as they could, I guess, is a good way to put it, because I don't think anybody would really be great in this situation until they get some closure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Zan's TikTok page. He's doing a great job over there on TikTok, raising awareness for justice for Val.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to ask again about this, what seems like some kind of bureaucratical loophole about Val not being, or the police not understanding that he was a missing person at that time when they spoke with him. Anything you find on this, please let us know, because this is a loophole that I would love to help patch in any way we can. And I would love to learn more about this and what we could, anything we could do to help fix this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say I was actually, neck deep in Wilmington Police Department policy right now. North Carolina is one of the few states that requires reporting of missing persons to NCIC, which is, again, that federal database with the DOJ. However, it only kicks in under certain criteria. Juveniles, things like that have to be entered immediately, but for an average individual who's missing, it can take up to 30 days to do that. So that could be one of these issues, like, good for North Carolina for having a reporting requirement. But again, as I've said, 30 days was too late for Val.
And what good is it if they're not searching that anyway when they actually visit with this person?
Yeah, it's really not it clearly doesn't appear to be an effective system, really. And the other interesting part that his dad told me the very first time I spoke with him, when he got the phone call about his son's death, he asked the detective, how did you get my number? Was I a next of kin contact? Or he asked him, he said, how'd you get my number? Was it from the missing persons report? And his quote was, his dad says the detective told him, "You filed a missing persons report?" So even after he had been found dead, apparently that missing persons report either wasn't entered, it wasn't, properly produced. They didn't send it out to the department. I don't know what happened with it. And I think that's one big thing we are trying to actively find out.
So there are many outcomes that I'm sure you and the family want for this. Can you highlight some of the most important outcomes that you hope for here?
Yeah, so obviously first and foremost, I want to know, we'll start with what we were just talking about, is what happened, how did he fall through the cracks, and what can be done to prevent another situation like this from ever happening again. If police run into a missing person and it doesn't show up, what sort of system can be put in place to prevent that? I think obviously the biggest question I have is if there was some sort of foul play, and I can't definitively say one way or the other, but the evidence that we are presented with certainly leaves room to believe that his family has said multiple times, we don't believe this was an accident. So, we want to know if they did do this investigation and they found it to be an accident, show them why. Show us how this was an accident. What is your theory of what happened? If it's not an accident, obviously then foul play is involved, and we need to find out what happened. Who could be responsible for this? And then another third element of it is why the family was told certain things that they've called, mistruths and deception, honestly, from the police department. They were even told, you'll never see that body camera footage. And they ended up actually getting to see that. And again, now we have it for the public to see. But it just seems like there's a lot of disconnect between what the family says they were told versus what, police just aren't speaking to me. So really, at the end of the day, my biggest goal is to find out what happened to Val. I mean, if it's an accident, show us why you think that. If it's not, are you investigating? These are all things I just truly don't know. I was actually running through the audit log of the body camera footage today. It was something I had glazed over before because it's all just numbers, and basically turned body camera on, uploaded it to the cloud. One small portion caught my eye. So there was, it says evidence uploaded to case number, ... There was no case number before. And then on June 29th, I believe, it was pulled by a captain at the police department and then filed into this, what appears to be a criminal investigation case number. So now I'm curious, are police investigating the possibility of foul play? If they still believed it was accidental, it wouldn't really make sense to me to have an open case. And then there's another case above it that says IA case number 004, which tells me, that's the internal affairs case that his father was talking about. This one doesn't have IA, and it's something 9,317 case number, which kind of tracks with how many cases police would have in 1 year versus the 4004 is the IA number. So it leads me to believe, and this is what I'm trying to track down actually today and as we're speaking, is there a criminal investigation ongoing, and what has changed? Has it been the coverage? Has it been the pushback that they've seen that, the family saying this wasn't accidental that could have caused the opening of the case?
Oh, damn. Good work on that.
Yeah, excellent work uncovering details about this story and really helping to fight for justice for Val D'Auvray. This is a wild story with several mysteries, and even if Val's death was accidental, there's still some problems here that need to be fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that biggest issue is where the disconnect happened between his father filing missing person report and police finding him. And, his family's convinced, obviously they don't have a crystal ball. Hindsight's always 20/20, but they believe had they just been contacted, Val would still be alive today.